Muzyki Radio.
Hello and welcome to Radio Szymanowski, the podcast of Akademii of Music in Katowice. Today my guest is Helena Tulve, composer and a professor in Academy of Music in Estonia, National Academy of Music. And I'm very delighted that you agreed to be my guest. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure as well.
First of all, I would like to ask you how is to be a composer in Estonia? Would you describe your normal life as a composer? How it looks like?
I suppose nowadays world is very cosmopolitan, so I suppose that in most of European countries, at least, the life is a bit similar. For a composer, not so many people are freelance composers, are more having something like teaching or something like that aside. So I'm also sharing my time between composing and then teaching, and also sometimes curating a festival, an Estonian Music Days festival. That is also my charge. So, and as a composer, it's really hard to say. I think a profession of composer is made of hundreds of tiny things. Aside of composing, like responding to emails, going to rehearsals, making corrections, writing program notes, giving interviews sometimes, updating data, all this kind of, or making some publicity text or whatever. It is not very, only composition dedicated profession in itself already. So also quite a lot of time goes for this kind of tiny things that are necessary. And there is always to do.
And I think there are also this very important stuff to do. Not like strict composition, but also searching for inspirations. I read that you are looking in inspirations also in traditional music and the Gregorian chant, but also you've studied in France, and you studied in IRCAM, so new technologies. There is a lot of inspirations and a lot of different words in your music, and how you connect it, how you find these connections between those different words.
I think I'm quite a curious person, so I would like to know about many different things. But I'm not always using, for example, the technology. I'm interested how it works, what is possible to understand. But actually, I'm quite analog. I'm still handwriting. I like more to compose for acoustical instruments. But I think it's important also to be aware what is existing, what is there for a composer or for a human being. Finally, it can be also an inspiration, but not directly. Maybe you are somehow making a kind of synthesis of all kind of different things you read or you hear or you see, or nature or other music or art or literature. So I have come to something that I'm not looking directly for inspiration. I think I'm just looking at things at life that are interesting to me, and then they somehow find a place in my compositions. The different details or different information come together, and then there is some kind of synthesis that is happening in a person's or creative person's inner space, let's say. Mm-hmm. I think what I'm interested in is more to see the patterns or the kind of principles that are guiding or driving things around us, and then trying to express also my feelings, my kind of deeper feeling for those things.
Mm-hmm. A lot of your compositions share similar topics, as I saw and I heard. You can even see it in your names of compositions, titles, but a lot of them are about seeing something not very well, like some topics with shadows, or that something is disappearing. On the other hand, there is a lot of also titles connected with silence and hearing and meditation. Am I right? Like these types of symbols are, I think they are important for you, aren't they?
Yes, I think first that how to say, in this world, in the physical world, everything has a shadow. So a shadow side also that often we see that is normal. Also, we can see the things that are in light, but there are probably also things that we don't see, that we can only guess, and that is the part of the unknown. This is one thing. And then also often I connect seeing and hearing in my perception. Often I see the music more than I hear the music, or I imagine the composition as not a purely visual, but as a space and a light or darkness, more than directly a sound. There is a sound that is related to the space and to the light and to the darkness or luminosity or vision or not seeing something, being opaque or absorbing the light. Those things are quite, in a way, synesthetically connected for me.
Are you a synesthetic?
I mean, I think every person is a synesthetic. I think we just don't notice. It's not only that I see the sound, but I can also feel the shape of a taste or smell, or the things are somehow connected. And there is an Estonian writer who has written about it and saying that every child is a synesthete. That we maybe lose this, that because we cannot express it and we cannot care for this capacity we have. And it's difficult to share because it's a bit different for every person. There is no universal one way, understandable way of being a synesthete or being a synesthete, having this connectedness of different perceptions. But probably most people actually do have it. I don't think that I am more sinister than everybody else around me, but I noticed that it is somehow connected in my inner space, in my inner feeling. That I can. We have this kind of automatic things also that the taste has higher frequencies, or it's a bit lame or plain in a upper kind of spectrum of a taste or perfume. There are those kind of things that, or we think it's the high and the low are related. Those are also kind of actually not so obviously, but we take it as obvious things.
Mm-hmm. I think that what you mean is also that we have, or you are more aware of several things, and I really have to say that I appreciate your comment about breathing of the water, piece of yours. Our listeners can listen to it on YouTube. I will provide the link for you. And there is really nice description of it. And the main passage which took my attention was that things sound different when you are close by, and there is this hard to describe, but you put it in words very well, that they don't have like this. They are not more in the center of our attention, but the world around them starts to look and sound different. This is very, very touching for me, and to be aware of this whole world of sounds, which might be too tiny for us in an everyday life to grab our attention. I think you are aware of that, and you try to do it in your music. Am I right?
It is always a difficult thing to compare the perception. We don't have any means. How can I know what another person is perceiving if it's similar to mine? This is, of course, we do it automatically. We think that the others perceive the same way. We take it as a universal, but actually probably it isn't. So it's hard for me to say that I hear things that the others don't. Probably I don't hear things that the others perceive or hear. But I think, it is interesting to me to see the different layers of distance and how the different sounds are connected, and to be connected to the sounds and to be connected to the world, and to see the connectedness in between things that we not always think are connected. But when we are already listening to them, we already, by our listening, we connect things in our consciousness. I hear one sound and then I hear the other sound, and through my listening process, to my attention, those things become connected somehow. There is some kind of link that is created by our consciousness and our focus, and the way that we notice that those things are somehow resonate together, or one after the other, or we make the connection. We create those connections. I think it's like how our brain works, that we connect. There are connections that are created, and I think also it's important to find or to see this connectedness in outside world as well, the same way as we do without knowing and without thinking about it in our brain.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. It's great. I would like to go back a little bit, and you said that you are an analog person, but there are these spectral influences in your music which are quite obvious. I actually would like to ask about two things. One is like, are you using these spectral techniques without technology, only by analog thing? That's the first one. And the second is that for me it's also obvious that thinking about like in spectral way is just the beginning, and there is a lot of beneath this approach. And I would like to maybe ask you about this. What's your goal? Let's say what's your direction in using those kind of this kind of approach?
Yeah, I definitely. When I discovered this spectral idea, I also say I couldn't agree more, because this is it's a very organic thing. It's like really trying to understand the sound and what is inside the sound. It's nature. It is the nature of the sound, let's say, is revealing also how it develops in time, how it opens, how the harmonics but open up, and the spectral components. But after, it's just like a model also of creating something that is not directly spectral, not this, but has this spectral quality or certain nature, is like spectral-like sounds. Because I think this is the way how we can create new objects, sound objects, also that we kind of remodel in a certain way the inside of the inside structure of a sound or a chord that is also a sound, and then we create different tensions in it, and we can kind of combine more luminosity or more in dense areas, shadowy areas in the harmonic, like, let's say, spectral like harmonic. And you can also inverse and to create opposite structures which are not like normal spectrum that has more space between frequencies in a lower register and is very intense in a higher register. We can do the inverse. It's just like a model. But I am not really using any analytical tool. I do it quite by the ear and the intuition, because it is more kind of way to zoom into the sound, create a sound and zoom into and create new spectrums, let's say, if we take it as just like an archetype of or some kind of model or shape of a sound, the inside of a sound. Of course, there are people who work very consciously with tools and make calculations and things like that, but I prefer probably to imagine this sound more. And then, it's a more like intuitive process for me to find the sound that somehow is connected and is resonating or in some kind of tune with my idea. That is also something that is not a precise idea, but it's rather a certain space that is that is this space for a certain a feeling, kind of deeper feeling that I want to express. It's a bit sounds a bit it's maybe confusing, but those processes are difficult to explain.
Of course, but I think knowing your music, it starts to bring up together, and it's quite becoming very clear, because all you speak about process, about creating space, and this different illumination, I would say, of several stuff. It's hearable in your music. So it's like connected with your music. It's quite clear. I have another question, about different thing, but this is also about how your relation with listeners and critics are. I'm very curious, and the question would be, like, what would you like to read in future critics of your pieces, or your next piece, let's say? What would be the best critic, you know?
Yeah, I also noticed that the critic is not anymore so much existing actually in our world. I think the best critic is probably if somebody has taken a time to think with you and to also to take it in and take it seriously, not superficially, but seriously, and then kind of reflects maybe something that I don't see. That's something that also is useful to me to take in and think about and go on. I think the best critic would be, a person who takes what is criticizing seriously, not like from a higher position, but just looks at the front of this object that is criticizing and or talking about, and then reflecting something personal, the way that I could maybe get a little tiny thing, a different perspective on a thing that I could that I could use to see myself also the thing a bit differently and to go on. But it happens very rarely, actually. But it has happened during my life that it can be just one sentence, but it can help you see what you do, because a composer is not a judging person. He's inside kind of substance, and is distilling something out of this substance, and is not knowing what comes out. It is the point of the profession or this work, for me at least, that I don't know what is coming out. I'm just processing something. I'm distilling with my experience and capacity something that resonates with me from all the possibilities, all the field of that is available, and then there is somebody else that sees the object or the work or the piece of music, and then somehow can see what you have done and reflect to you. Not to say that it was beautiful or not beautiful, or it was a total disaster. It can happen also, but helps to go deeper but it's quite rare. I say I'm a kind of idealistic.
And do you feel as a composer more like an explorer or more like an inventor?
I think I'm more like an explorer type.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I'm inventing. It's inventing part is not in focus in this sense that I think everything is there.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to discover.
Sure. For me, it was quite obvious because you've already told about like these connections. So you're like searching for connections and not creating points. You know, like that was what I expected. But it was also very important for me to hear it.
I think the world is very rich already, and by exploring, it may happen that we invent something. It can happen. It is not totally like saying no to every kind of invention, but it's not a purpose. It's not a goal to invent and to be an inventor, but because there are people who are of this type and who invent things and things that don't exist, and it's very necessary, the spirit of invention also. But in the art, maybe the invention is not so much in the focus than in science or also practical things sometimes.
Yes. Thank you very much for this conversation. We heard a lot of very interesting things, and maybe for just closing, could you tell us what you are like composing right now, and what would be your next piece to hear?
I have had a pause because I had two big works that have taken 2 years of my life. And then I needed time to digest things. And now I am working on a vocal piece, but in very, very beginning. And also I will work on a little, or not maybe so little, trio for a chamber group that has saxophone, accordion, and double bass. So it's a very interesting and challenging instrumentation. So I'm looking forward to work on this and to find ways to how this kind of ensemble can collaborate and what is possible, because it's quite unusual group.
It is. Thank you one more time. Helena Tulve was my guest, and hope to hear your new pieces soon.
Thank you.